We begin with yet another prologue, where Nicky recalls the time he was stuck at the edge of the woods, but his grandma, Baba Fiend, was watching him, ultimately taking him away. Baba Fiend claims that he only wants to be left alone, so she leaves him in the middle of the forest to teach him a lesson about wandering off. Young Nicky's now fearing for his life. He's trapped, maybe forever, alone, with no coherent direction to run without going even further into the abyss. The only thing Grandma Baba Fiend tells him is that he can make it back home if he... Well, he doesn't remember what she said after that. From what I remember, I honestly hated this book, mainly for the ending. However, the last time I read this book was around like 3 years ago. So let's see if this is a worthy conclusion to the Nicky trilogy. Releasing on July 19th, this acts as the conclusion to Nicky's story, along with fully explaining and setting up the first game. So, let's see how this trilogy ends. Nicky is woken up as him and his friends are being driven to Spreeland for his birthday. It's currently summer and exactly 1 year since he moved to Ravenbrooks. But ever since the event of the last book, which happened earlier in winter, things have changed. The kids have been forced to move on from the Mr. Peterson stuff. Jay and Mr. Epizito are on good terms, and missing posters have gone up for Maya and Aaron. Wait, who the f is that? Is that Aaron? What did they do to him? Prologue. Nicky, though, still can't get over the fact that Mr. Peterson is a free man, while he has to deal with people like the kid's parents and his new therapist saying that he needs to get over it. But at least he can enjoy his day at Spreeland, as him and his friends go eat like cake and stuff and just hang out. After all, this is really the only place for people in Ravenbrooks to experience a theme park, even if Mr. Peterson was one of the engineers of the place. They go on with their day, and for their last ride, they decide to go on Scream School. Whoa! But Nicky's not really feeling it, since this place reeks of Mr. Peterson, along with the heavy screams emitting through the line. When they eventually make it onto the ride, our protagonist is conveniently forced at the front. It gets even worse for him, as over the intercom, he hears a familiar someone say,
"Take your seats, boys and girls, it's gonna be a bumpy ride."
The ride zooms into the abyss, with nothing discernible except Nicky's panic that he could be next on the kill count. Nicky is dreading the incline as the pre-recorded voice says,
"Alright now, boys and girls, are you ready for your test?"
Then suddenly, it drops. Everything from Mr. Peterson's pre-recorded voice, the mannequins lunging at our protagonist, the desk restraints allowing for no breathing, the endlessly dark tunnel so black Nicky becomes lost in it, unable to see anything as fog machines and heavy inclines make up this honestly well-described ride. However, before reaching the end, and in the climax, Nicky turns to his side to see a figure lurking in the backstage area. It's Mr. Peterson. But then, the ride finally ends, and the squad leave, but not before one of the ride attendants gives them a drawing, stating that one of them left it on the ride. It's another missing poster, with a drawing on the back. Maritza is very accusatory of Nicky. While Nicky's trying to make sense of what he just found, Maritza gets a little bit uncomfortable. Now, this chapter was pretty long, being roughly 20 pages. And as a matter of fact, this book only has 10 chapters, but is by far the longest in the trilogy, being 222 pages. But besides that, I really like this introduction. It perfectly represents the characters now and what their story is going to be like from now on. But anyways, let's continue. The group are eating at their new hangout spot, Nigiri Nights, where they begin planning on their engineering club, mainly because their parents want them to step away from the Peterson stuff. While they try to come up with a name for the club, Maritza isn't really talking, especially to Nicky. The gang thinks of a name for a bit, but ultimately the group decides on Engineering Masters of the Universe, or EMU for short. Although no matter how much the group has fun, the looming mystery of Aaron and Maya still haunts them. After they eat, Nicky walks home accompanied with Trinity, who is genuinely worried about his friendship with Maritza and his unwillingness to let Mr. Peterson go. He even does that swearing to the alien stuff. However, on their walk, as soon as they pass the neighbor's house, they notice flickering lights coming from one of the windows, and upon further inspection, it's an SOS pattern. Then, an ominous figure stops the lights. The two are terrified, so Nicky decides to walk Trinity back home, and when returning back to his house, he encounters a certain rubber ball. At home, Nicky's parents seem proud of him for letting the whole Peterson thing go, but deep down he still wants to continue investigating, creating a massive dilemma for him. At night, Nicky decides to hell with it and relaunches his investigation on Mr. Peterson, with Nicky sneaking into Mr. Peterson's backyard to re-dig up whatever Mr. Peterson was burying all the way from missing pieces. He uses his weird pogo shovel invention to make the digging process a bit quicker, but his digging is halted on the encounter of dry dirt. Out of desperation, he uses his magnet gun to try to finish the job, revealing a duffel bag. Inside is celluloid and busted up VHS tapes. But suddenly, he hears the front door open, so he quickly tries to cover up his tracks and bolts it to his backyard. And although he found something notable, the burden of everyone wanting him to move along with him doing some really incriminating stuff, keeps haunting him. The next morning, our protagonist finds out there's a prank at the Tillman Market, with the mannequin being posed into the main office. The squad decide to meet up at the back of the store to try to see what's going on, but to do so, they'll need to break in and see it for themselves. However, Maritza is starting to get very suspicious of Nicky, especially with the fact that a lot of the missing posters in the surrounding area have just disappeared. They eventually break in through the back door with a lockpick. Through the dark, they eventually make it to the office, with Nicky finding and getting close and personal with the mannequin. But when he turns it around, he finds the mannequin has a face. After booking it out there as fast as they can, Maritza accuses Nicky of setting it up. Trinity's on the fence, not really blaming him, but also disregarding the flashing lights they saw earlier. All the while, Enzo is just trying to keep the peace, even if he doesn't fully trust Nicky. But our protagonist doesn't care, pushing away all of his friends and storming home. Look, Nicky's not making the best choices, but since this is written in his first person perspective, I kind of sympathize for him. Now for Maritza, I'm not sure if I like her accusatory personality, nor do I think it's really realistic, but from what I remember, it only gets worse. Way worse. Nicky's in yet another nightmare, where Aaron is doing something at his desk with a scratching sound. You're not gonna like where this path ends, Nicky. Take it from me, you're gonna wind up lost. Unless... Nicky suddenly wakes up and hears his dad using the lawnmower outside. However, he notices something hanging from the trellis. After struggling for a bit, he grabs the object without being noticed by his dad. Turns out it's a piece of paper with the words, "Red Key." Huh, I wonder what this could be alluding to. The group meet up once again to set up the whole emu thing, where even though they are having a good time, our protagonist just has to bring up the note. No one, especially Maritza, is too interested and even a bit nervous and embarrassed to really talk. And after Trinity and Maritza eventually distance themselves from the group. So now the squad is split up into two, being Emu with Nicky and Enzo, and Maritza and Trinity doing their own thing. However, they have the same goal of getting sponsored by EarthPro to become official. After fucking up his friendship even more, Nicky walks home alone. And heavily searches the duffel bag. Inside is really messed up VHS tapes, with real cases that have been torn apart. However, Nicky still believes that these tapes can be repaired somehow. And so, this is the end of the first third of the book, and it's got me a little conflicted. I mean, we've barely seen Mr. Peterson, only appearing for like a glimpse. And there really isn't a goal that I'm like intrigued with. I guess you could say the EarthPro stuff, but who gives a fuck? And since this is the final book, I really don't know how they're gonna tie this into the first game. Like at this point, we don't know if this book will have a conclusion or just end with another stupid cliffhanger. Wink, wink. After many phone calls from Enzo, Nicky's parents decide to drop him off to his house so they could play some off-brand video games. He tries to excuse his sister's behavior, but our protagonist isn't having it, so Enzo decides to set the two up on a one-on-one meeting at Nigiri Nights. And so, that night, the two meet up. And after a bit of hesitation from Maritza, she finally opens up her thoughts as she thinks Nicky did all these shenanigans because he wanted to frame Mr. Peterson, since he's still obsessed with this. And after a bit of banter, they start to make amends and make fun of Trinity's stupid social justice club. Yeah, fuck you. But before they're about to leave, Maritza remembers the paper that was left at Spreeland. It turns out that drawing and the whole makeshift art studio is from Aaron, as he's a bit of an artist. And wow, finally we get actual answers instead of just more mysteries. Damn, things are really coming together. At least to Nicky. Maritza, though, really starts to think about those missing posters. And even if Nicky isn't up to all this stuff, he's still obsessed, and she can't do anything about it. And so, Marissa runs away. Nicky tries to stop her, but he just can't do anything to change her mind. Nicky's having yet another nightmare of the grocery store. I know, very original. Especially with his grandma, who's flashing a light through the shelves before crying out loud and saying, "I make bad things happen." The next day, Enzo and Nicky go to the EarthPro site to meet up with Miss Delphine, who has the ability to appoint them as an official club. However, first, they need to get on her good side. So they walk through the Golden Apple Amusement Park, which is currently in the midst of a demolition. Enzo tries to present the two clubs' ideas, but she doesn't really care. Instead, she kindly orders them to do their dirty work in cleaning up the factory, disguising it as re-engineering the place. So in the middle of cleaning, Nicky for some reason decides it's an appropriate time to drop the information that he was digging in Mr. Peterson's yard. Enzo immediately and rightfully is frustrated and angry. So Nicky does what he's been doing throughout this whole book when he's being called out and just talks sarcastically about him being a maniac. Dude, this guy's a f***ing loser. He storms away, and after scouring the factory for a bit, he finds a room with a bunch of trinkets that could potentially help him repair or even play the tapes he found. He tries to report back to Enzo, but he's already left. And now Nicky's really messed up again. I feel the kind of alone that only appears when you realize you can't fill all the empty pieces of yourself. At some point, other people need to give you some of those missing pieces too. Boom, amazing title drop. Throughout this whole trilogy, Nicky has been feeling lonely at times, especially when he pushes away his friends. Like I swear every week, he groans to himself about he'll be alone for the rest of his life because he did one weird thing. However, this time, with the way he's acting, that might actually be the case. On the walk out of the factory, he finds yet another missing poster dangling, with a weird face on the back. Oh no. Today is the groundbreaking day fair for EarthPro, as the whole town comes to meet up. Our protagonist and his father have yet another father-son conversation, where Jay reassures him that he can still make amends with his friends. But they're interrupted by the announcer, along with Enzo approaching Nicky. Enzo relentlessly tries to talk to Nicky, but he just shrugs him off. However, when that doesn't work, Miss Delphine eventually takes Nicky to a corner so they could talk. She tells him in the most awkward and padded way that Enzo dropped the whole emu thing, and since he's the only member of emu, she just won't confirm the one-man club. She's then called on stage to talk about the youth and stuff, while getting ready to present a certificate of partnership to a new human rights organization at the school, being founded by Trinity. That's right, her stupid social justice club is being confirmed with the name of CROW, an acronym for Creating Responsibly Outsourced Work, and the members include all of Nicky's friends. Nicky gets furious, and although they try to apologize to him, he begins to make a scene in front of everyone. Everyone watches as Nicky once again starts sarcastically ranting about him sucking all the fun and just really childish arguments. He then starts bringing up personal things like his Bubba Fiend, which people mistake for a donut, and gets all the more angry. But the real nail in the coffin is when he brings up Mr. Peterson into the argument.
That's right. Now don't you feel so much better having someone to blame for all the messed up things that happen in this messed up town?
And after that, he storms off. Now it's clear that Nicky and Mr. Peterson are not all that different. I mean, for starters, they're both really interested in engineering, but also the way the town treats them, putting all the blame on the two of them, which could be a reason why Nicky is just so obsessed with the man. As he runs to the forest, his last-ditch effort is to go to the amusement park to find at least something, anything that helps his case. However, it's all gone. There's nothing left except a blank lot. Now, this fact would be kind of retconned later, especially in the TV show or the future games, but since well after the events of Hello Neighbor Act 1, the amusement park is still there. It's pretty clear that the creative team instantly regretted making this decision, since afterwards they really fell in love with this park, but not in this story. On his way back home, Nicky encounters yet another missing poster, with a picture at the back of it. Then 2 more posters, where he finds out that they're coming from Aaron's window. So with the help of a nearby tree, he climbs onto the second story, and to his room, which is filled with even more missing posters with abstract drawings on the back. All of this making up the new home of the makeshift art studio. However, he finds on the bottom bunk of the bed, the shape of a body is covered with a blanket. Although Nicky's morbid curiosity makes him take off the blanket, revealing yet another mannequin. Nicky desperately looks around, finding any clues, any pieces to put any semblance of a puzzle together, but he does find something. Someone in the doorway. He stands there, motionless, eventually grinning a little, while letting out a bit of laughter. Nicky slowly and surely tries to get out, but Mr. Peterson just stands there, motionless. Even when Nicky retreats to his room, that night, the comfort of sleeping becomes a privilege that he will never obtain. Nicky wakes up to Mr. Peterson tearing down the tree next to Aaron's bedroom, with the two of them knowing exactly why. As our protagonist makes his way to the kitchen, where his parents can't help but bring up the events of last night, they do at least apologize. I'm not sure if I mentioned it yet, but we hear that Nicky has been seeing a therapist. However, clearly, that doesn't solve anything. And they even side with him about his friends being in the wrong for leaving him. Upstairs, Nicky devises a plan to repair the broken VHS tapes and play them at the factory with the help of the VCR at their home, all in the name of Aaron and Maya. He sneaks his way downstairs, unplugging the VCR, and trots his way down to the theme park. Right when he's about to enter the factory, he hears footfalls behind him, and they're getting closer and closer and closer. It's a llama. Farmer Llama immediately notices him and helps him up, and on his way back with the llamas, he says, "You know, I would've just given you the sign. All you had to do was ask." This moment is pretty cool, honestly, and it's a nice send-off to Farmer Llama and his farm, since this is really his last major appearance in the franchise, as he only gets a couple mentions in later books. But getting back to the actual, plot, Nicky breaks into the building, into the room with the TV, into the room with a bunch of knickknacks, one of them being a TV. We then get really one of the only scenes where Nicky's actually doing some mechanical stuff, where he repairs as much as he can of the old VHS tapes. He then grabs one of the small generators and creates a makeshift projection screen. And now, it's time to watch the VHS tapes. He then inserts the first tape into the VHS. Maya is documenting Aaron like he's a wild animal as he draws away. However, her humor is stopped when he shows the camera one of his drawings, featuring a roller coaster car lodged into a tree. None of them are laughing. Time for the next tape. Maya is practicing her ballerina skills, with the music of her ballerina box filling up the room, but she gets distracted by arguing downstairs. Her mom yells at her dad about him becoming different ever since he moved his workshop to the basement. He then catches Maya with the camera, leading her to run away. Although there are 2 tapes left, Nicky decides to leave them along with the VCR, as he's been gone for a while and needs to rush back home to not get into trouble. On the way back, he encounters the beach ball again, in the middle of the road. Nicky does the usual, taking it down the road, chasing it in front of his house, but he's interrupted by screaming and commotion, coming from the Petersons' house. It's hard to see, but Mr. Peterson is clearly chasing something, and ends up locking it in the basement door, with a big, red lock. And then, he spots Nicky, but instead of getting caught, Nicky runs away to his house. Now, honestly, I'm not really into this scene too much. Not only does it change a couple things about the scene in general, but it happens just so quickly. Like, in total, this scene only makes up 1 page. 1 page for one of the most iconic scenes in the game. But anyways, back to the plot. Turns out Nicky's been gone for 11 hours, as his parents scold him for being away for so long, along with taking the VCR. Officer Keith is there too, as the authorities were about to file a missing persons report. But even more devastatingly, all of his ex-friends are waiting for him in his room, as they look upon the scattered parts and pieces of our protagonist's mischief, along with the dozens of missing posters. Posters that Nicky doesn't even remember taking. And the thing is, Nicky just can't do anything. His friends are unable to look at him in the face. And from the point of view of anyone besides Nicky, he looks extremely guilty. I mean, if he's the one who took all these missing posters, then what else could he have done? Even Keith believes that Nicky had to do something about the disappearances, and so still tries to stick up for Nicky, but it's to no avail, and Marissa's even on the verge of tears. Once Keith leaves along with the group, the Roths scold our protagonist, but he gets a realization. It's been Mr. Peterson all along. He's been framing him for all the posters and mannequins. He tries to rant and explain that all of this was Mr. Peterson, but it's no use. Turns out that the reason why his friends were in his room was because they came to apologize. But now, they're even more justified in being afraid of him. His parents leave his room, taking both his friends and really anything he still cares about, especially the boxes of his parts and machines. All he can do now is lay down with the fact that he has no friends, no club, no appreciation from his parents, and no answers to anything. Nicky has a surprisingly tame dream of him falling to catch some fireflies and digging with a stick, eventually falling into the hole he created. Then some wacky stuff happens with Aaron pleading for help, with him suddenly turning into his grandma, who starts to once again yap about wandering off and getting lost. When he wakes up, he decides to go sneaking off again to the factory. However, the trellis that he always used to grab notes left to him, along with being used to climb up and down, finally collapses on itself. He makes his way back to the factory into the projector room, where he proceeds to play the final tapes. The next tape he plays shows Mr. Peterson at his office, playing carnival music in the background, as he mumbles about some random stuff. But then he notices the person recording him, as he catches Maya, where all she could do is run away before it cuts out. And now, one more tape to go. He puts the tape in, where it shows an actual happy scene, with Maya running around the house. However, she takes a detour to a never-before-seen room, where she makes her way up and on the roof. On the ledge, she starts pleading to some unknown person for some sort of game to be over. But instead, we see as the camera falls down around 3 stories to hit the ground, along with Maya. This is how Maya's death is adapted, and although it still suffers from many inaccuracies and being a bit breezed over, it's still really haunting. Then, after what feels like forever, we hear someone scream and demanding her to get back up, but nothing happens. Then, the camera goes out of focus, where it is brought to Mr. Peterson's desk. Then we hear Aaron as he says to his dad,
You're a monster.
This is it. This is the last and by far longest chapter in this trilogy. It all ends here. Nicky finally has proof of something bad happening, but he feels that at this point, no one's gonna care. Since literally every time we try to uncover a mystery and show proof, it's just gotten worse for him. So, he leaves the remaining evidence in the room, so that maybe someone can uncover what he's found. But he knows that there's only one way to finally know what happened to the Petersons. So out of desperation, in a final Hail Mary shot, he decides to break into Mr. Peterson's house one last time. On the street of Friendly Court, as he faces the house, a familiar ball rolls to his side. It's currently nighttime, with the storm violently taking over the town. So with the throw of the ball, in the sync with the sound of lightning, Nicky breaks Aaron's window completely. He uses the boxes of the parts his mom was going to throw away to stack up onto the roof. However, the rain slowly deteriorates the boxes, but right before the boxes crunch down, he jumps onto the gutter. Once he's in position, he then climbs up and into the window. Aaron's room has now transformed into something similar to Act 1. Like the exact same, down to the stairs, to the paintings, to the locked door. After scouring the rooms, he finds a car key, which he'll never use, but it's a reference in the game, so it's cool, I guess. He also finds a yellow key to unlock this door. He then finds and pulls this lever, which turns out to control this platform, allowing him up to Maya's window. He looks at the remains of what Maya left, until noticing the red key, the basement key. He makes it out of the room and backtracks to where he started, where he then flips a switch to remove the dead-end wall. And so, he makes his way down the hallway, and ultimately, he makes his way to the living room, but more specifically, the basement door. With the red key, he opens it up, and after a couple steps down, the entrance shuts, trapping him. No matter how much he screams to be let out, he knows he has no other choice but to descend down below, into the washing machine, where once he opens it, he notices that it leads to somewhere, but before he can truly comprehend what it is, he gets shoved in, with the washing machine door being slammed shut. Now more than ever, he really starts to regret even entering this house, but he knows he has no other choice than to wander off further. The rest plays out even more like the games, with him entering the room with the fake windows. He breaks out and travels through this endless abyss that is Mr. Peterson's basement. Gates and levers and pipes and long hallways and mannequins are described just like the games, with a further emphasis on the darkness. As he ventures his way further in, while flipping even more switches, he makes his way to the door. Now, although I wish the author went more into, the basement, I'm still pleased with how it's represented here. And so, he enters the room. And oh, he's right behind you! Runs and runs and runs, and all he can do is run through a straight line as this labyrinth twists and turns with no end in sight, up until he finds a door with 3 locks on it. He's gonna get caught by Mr. Peterson, he knows it. But what if, with the flashlight, if he bangs the flashlight on the door, on the lock, it can break, and it does. The first one does, and the second one does, but he's getting closer and closer. He slams it on the lock. He's almost there, but his adrenaline pushes through, but ultimately breaks it open, slams it shut, and locks it with a wood plank. This didn't happen in the games. Now Nicky is truly lost, in a place that's not even from the games. As he walks through the darkness, he finds the office that was originally on the first floor, but has since moved down here. Along with the same papers, there are new ones here too, which compares the accidents during the park's construction to Aaron's presence, in which he was there for all of them. And after some context clues, our protagonist has the realization that it was Aaron. He was the monster. He's the one who drew the drawings on the missing posters as an escape from his father, and he was the one responsible for the last tape where Maya fell to her death, since he was the one that was chasing her and who picked up the camera, and at the desk looked into the mirror and said to himself that he's a monster, and Mr. Peterson can only respond in anger. Aaron can never escape the bad omen title that was placed upon him, even after his disappearance. In the next room is a memorial for Maya and Diane Peterson. Although Nicky wants to stay in grief, he knows he has to keep venturing further. After a few more doors and a ramp, he hears something coming from the speaker.
Come one, come all, to the land of under. You'll flip your lid, you'll tip your hat, you'll spin your top. You're just in time for the games, Nicky boy.
And there he is, in a dark theme park being run by mannequins. Almost everything here is from the Golden Apple Amusement Park wreckage. The signs, the mannequins, the kiosks. He tries to leave, but the chain link fence is too much.
Welcome home, Nicky. Welcome home.
Our protagonist tries to look for any place to run or break out of, but he can't. Mannequins guard the chain link fence, which already is too high to climb. And even beyond the fences, it's just darkness, going on forever. And so, he gives up. He wanted me to have a friend. It's Aaron. He's ashamed, especially with the fact of what he did. He reveals that he wasn't locked up here for punishment, but to protect him. He is the only family Mr. Peterson has left. But most importantly, he makes bad things happen. Nicky scrambles with thoughts, eventually thinking back to the one line his grandma said, "You'll always be alone if you wonder, little wolf. Unless you leave a trail." But he remembers this way too late. Every trail, every relationship, every bond has been lost and broken. Everyone will just assume that this troubled boy just ran away from home in a fit of rage. And so, the final passage reads as follows. And in this glaring moment of clarity, I realize that I've unearthed this long-hidden secret of the Peterson family. I've unburied their skeletons, and in their place, I've buried myself. And no one is ever gonna find me. Although this book does have flaws, especially with characters just seeming a bit out of character and Mr. Peterson not really appearing that much, honestly, through editing this book, I found to appreciate it so much more than I did before, and also emotional, since I've spent a year and a half working on a recap for these books. And it's crazy to see how far I've gone with my editing, my artwork, me in general. And so I want to thank you, and to whoever saw this video. I cannot be here without you. Now, I have a very, very big video planned, but I'm gonna be gone for, another year. And for the rest of the books, like the Aaron trilogy, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to just push that back since I honestly need a break from the novels. But don't worry, I do plan to someday revisit the books. So to anyone still there, take care, and remember, always leave a trail behind. or else you'll be lost forever.